Hi everyone, I'm Bill and welcome to the Opposite of Work channel. I do videos to help entrepreneurs and small business owners optimize their businesses and their lives. If there's anything that you would like some help with, please let me know and I'll maybe do a future video on it. Now let's get started with today's episode. One of the more stressful things about running an inventory-based business is the constant challenge of having the right amount of warehouse space. You're almost never perfectly optimized. You either have too much warehouse space or too little, and either one of those conditions can get you into lots of trouble. Too much warehouse space, and you're burning cash on rent but not turning over inventory to pay for it. And if you have too little warehouse space, you can't meet the demand that you've spent so much time and money driving. Also, when you've outgrown your warehouse, all sorts of inefficiencies pop up which drive down profit. I've been in both of these situations. I previously ran an e-commerce business for 17 years. Started with nothing and scaled it all the way up to a pretty high volume operation. So we rented maybe 6 different facilities over that time frame, and we always seem to have either too much or too little. There's a rare amount of time that you're just perfectly optimized. So when you look at this graph, that's what I'm trying to represent here. So these unit numbers are the number of different unique SKUs that you carry, and these square footage numbers are how large the facility is. So for example, when you're just first getting started and you have 100 unique items and you're within a 500 square foot facility, you're paying X amount of dollars for that facility. At first, it might be too much square footage. You have surplus capacity. But as you grow and you're bringing on more SKUs and more of the same SKUs you had previously, and you're working your way up to this number, you at some point get to be more of a balanced configuration where you've got just a good amount of inventory, it's covering the rent and then some, and it's just about the perfect floor plan or footprint for your business. But then as you continue to grow up and up and up, at some point it starts to get constrained. And this is where you're bringing pallets out into the parking lot in the morning just so you have enough room to operate throughout the day. And then you bring them all back in the late afternoon. That is something that I have personally experienced as my business was growing. So this graph, this ladder, is representing that how you're never perfectly optimized. The balance is there for short amounts of time, and as long as your business is either growing or shrinking, you're probably going to be caught in these areas, either the red or the green, and it's just something to understand. Know that it's going to happen, but also I'm going to introduce some tools that'll help you at least keep a good eye on this and a handle that should help you put you in the driver's seat of this process. So what do you do about it? So the answer lies in cubic dimensions. There's two things that matter here: the total physical size of your inventory and the total physical storage capacity in your warehouse. Your cubic dimension calculations matter today, and they also matter into the future. Today they matter because you need to know where you're at with filling up your warehouse. Are you, say, 50% of the way there? You'll also will see opportunities for better data-driven decisions, like keeping fewer large items in stock, or maybe ordering fewer units more often from certain suppliers on hot products. So as you go through these measurements, which I'll outline, you'll start to see all sorts of opportunities to optimize the space that you're currently in, which will also benefit you when you move into additional larger space down the road. These figures also matter a lot for the future. You need to know when you'll outgrow your current space. It's a huge question. That's also driven both by the amount of inventory you plan to acquire, as well as what your space allows for today. So you're trying to balance how much you want to sell with how much capacity you have now and then potentially will need in the future. So you need to measure your inventory and storage capacity. Once you do, you'll have a whole new perspective on how to optimize your warehouse. So let's break down these two pieces. So let's break this down. I use something called the MEC format: measure, enter, calculate. This is a little Google sheet that I created. It's free. You'll see a link to it in the description. So starting with inventory, You'll list your products here, first column, and then you're simply going to measure in inches the length, width, and height of each product. This formula is to calculate the cubic feet, which you'll see here is simply length times width times height divided by 1728, and then that yields the cubic feet. Then you'll enter the quantity that you have in stock of each of these particular products. Calculating the quantity in stock times the cubic feet tells you how many total cubic feet of that particular item that you have. And then down here, we're now able to sum the cumulative amount of dimension for all of your products in cubic feet. In this example, there's 702. Now, you certainly have some kind of a system where you're keeping all of your product information. At a bare minimum, should have product name, maybe the SKU number, as well as how much is in stock at any given time. Your system may have fields available for length, width, and height. If your system does have that, I would highly recommend entering these three pieces of detail into your system, whether it's an inventory management system, a warehouse management system, could even be your e-commerce platform, whichever, wherever you keep your quantities on hand in your inventory list. So that would be ideal, because then what you could do is just simply export item name, quantity in stock, length, width, height, and then you could, in the spreadsheet, have all these other things just calculate right out for you. So this is how you deal with the inventory side of it. And this literally means walking around your facility, probably with a clipboard, maybe a little folding table, grabbing each product, documenting it, like measuring it with a tape measure, and then entering it again into whichever system. Ideally, it's your core inventory management system, but if not, just a spreadsheet will be fine. What about inner packs and case packs? A lot of my clients get a little bit wrapped around the axle with that. So you're walking around and you've got a certain unit, and maybe it's just in a little display box or something, but that comes in, let's say, a 12 unit inner pack. And then that 12 unit inner pack comes within a larger case that contains 12 of those 12 unit inner packs. So it's good to know the dimensions of your cases, and it's good to know the dimensions of your inner packs. For this exercise, it's not important, but because you're walking around measuring anyway, I would recommend recording those details as well. And your inventory management system, or wherever your products are, won't likely have the ability to deal with those other types of, like, those dimensions, case size, inner pack size. So just put it into a spreadsheet. It will help you for things like outbound shipping. So if a customer says, I'll buy 144 units of something, and you've got an intact case, might as well just slap a label on it and ship it right out. But to do that, you'll want to know the dimensions of that case, maybe to price shop the shipping. It's also good to know for inbound reasons, because you just want to be able to keep an eye and sort of quantify whether you're being charged correctly by your suppliers. So it's good information to document, especially if you're going to be out there measuring anyway, but not relevant for this exercise. The bottom line is that you'll never know at any given moment how many cases, full cases, or even how many inner packs you have of something, because you're always opening them up to pull units out of. But you should always know how many units you have, provided you're doing a good job of tracking your inventory in close to real time. So for this exercise, just worry about measuring one unit and then whatever your quantity on hand is, and that will give you a good enough picture of what we're trying to achieve here. Okay, so now let's take a look at storage. So here, all you need to do is go around your facility and start recording the different types of shelving that you have. So this could be informal. Maybe you find some 6-foot shelves and you just want to call them 6 foot. It's really just for you to know how you're referring to them. Measure the width, depth, and height. Notice too that this is a little different from the product. On the product, we were doing length, width, height. That's kind of the industry standard. Here we're using width, depth, height, because that's how most companies refer to their shelving. Again, enter this in inches. And this field here will calculate the cubic feet. Here you'll enter how many of these 6-foot shelves you have currently, and then this will give you the calculation of how many total cubic feet that equates to. So different types of shelving, maybe you've got a couple different types of pallet racks. Maybe there's just some open floor space. And what I've done here, this is just a suggestion, but you can handle this any way you'd like. But if you're storing on pallets, which are typically about 4x4, and you want to go even 4 feet high, that would be about a 48-inch cube. So do this however you want. I mean, I love pallets because you can move them around as long as you've got a pallet jack. But that's how to handle any open floor space because it is storage capacity, even if it's just straight on the floor. Just decide how high up you want them to be stacked. And then even tabletops, like for example, this is showing us that there's a table that's about 3 feet long and about 2 feet wide, and you're going to stack stuff on it 36 inches high off the table, or maybe 18 under it, 18 above it, something like that. Put up whatever you think in here. This is not perfect science. This is just us trying to get a reasonable handle on what your total capacity is. So once you've done all of this, you're going to arrive at your current total capacity, your storage capacity in your facility at that moment. So what I want to next introduce is this variance multiplier. That's this one right here. I call it less unusable allowance. I just have 25% plugged in there right now. What this means is that storage is not perfect. You can't put products up to the very quarter inch to the top of your shelf, to the sides of it. There's always going to be void space. There's always going to be the actual shelves themselves, which take up a little bit of that space. Also, the top shelf. If you are storing things on top of your rack, well, that's not being accounted for, say, in this scenario where this is just measuring everything inside of this like rectangular shape. So you need to figure out like what you feel is a reasonable multiplier to plug in here. One thing that you can do if you really want to get granular with this is just go up to any rack that's filled like it normally would be, and pull everything off it, measure everything, calculate the total amount, and then you know how much the rack is, and just see what the difference is. So if this rack, for example, has 60 cubic feet, and you measure all the inventory on it at any given time, and it's whatever 50, then you're starting to wrap your head around, okay, what percentage am I not utilizing? So whatever the percentage is, you can just play with this, but I plugged in 25, which says that we've got about 4,800, almost 4,900 total cubic feet currently being used or currently available to us within our facility. Okay, so now we know both sides of this MEC equation. We've measured and we've entered and we've calculated the inventory, and then we've done the same thing with our current storage. Now we can start to do some really valuable things with it. So let's take a look at some summary information here. So first of all, what we've just solved for is what is our current state. So currently we've got about 1,700 cubic feet of inventory, and we've got 48, almost 4,900 cubic feet of storage capacity, which tells us that we're only using about 35% of our total storage capacity in our facility, which says that we could expand about 65%. So this says we can go a lot longer in this current facility. Okay, that's current state. Now, we can also start to run some forecasts. So let's say that we want to grow our inventory. Let's say the business is good and we see some opportunities to kind of grow with some inventory. So we come back to this inventory tab, and then over here, what we're saying is these products, what if instead of keeping that many units in stock, 120, we go up to 200? And then on this one, instead of 83, we go up to 150. You could just run these scenarios in here. These are running the calculations now for you. So we're saying that in these scenarios, we're going to go from 1,700 to 3,200, almost 3,300 cubic feet of inventory. So if we go back to this, what this says is in that scenario with the existing amount of storage, which is still this 4,900, we'll go from using 35% to almost, let's say, 67% of the entire facility. So we're starting to outgrow it. We're already starting to push a little bit here on our current amount of storage available to us, mostly the shelving storage. So then you say, but wait a minute, we can put more shelving in here. We've got some raw space, open space. We've got some short little shelves that we could put larger ones in instead. So then the final piece of this is to go back to storage. And then over here, similar to what we just saw with inventories, you can start to say, well, what if instead of 10 units of the 6-foot shelf, we want to use 15? And then instead of 8, we want to use 20, and so on down the line. So if we made all these decisions, and by the way, you could plug in whatever the cost would be right over here and run a little calculation to tell you how expensive this expansion would be. But the expansion would be going from 6,500 to almost 10,000 square feet. Apply your little unusable allowance, so you're netting out around 7,500. So what this tells us is that if we expanded our inventory to what we were forecasting back on this tab here to 3,300 cubic feet, and if we maximized out our shelving according to the plan that we outlined on this storage tab, then we're saying that the all-in capacity for the facility with our goals for inventory and adding more shelving capacity, we would be at about a 44% utilization, which still gives us about a 56% amount of additional expansion potential. So what that means as far as like timeline goes, it's up to you. You need to determine like how quickly are you going to grow, which inventory items are going to get you there, and how much space do you need to contain them. But now at least you have a way of quantifying this using data to get a better handle on when this, when you're going to have to pull the trigger on a larger space, or the reverse also applies, when you might be able to reduce the size of your entire operation. So there's many benefits to doing this. One is that you'll always know where you're at in your business's growth curve. Another is that you'll have a longer runway for a huge decision like renting a larger facility. You don't want to get caught short on those types of decisions because there's often not that much available warehouse space in the market. Another one is that you'll learn a lot about your inventory and can make some tactical decisions to optimize it. And then finally, you'll just sleep better at night because you'll know where you stand and you'll understand your time frame to move to a new facility. So just to refresh, the process is simply measure. You're going to measure your current inventory and your current storage capacity. Enter. You'll enter the measurements into your inventory management system or a spreadsheet. And then finally, calculate. You could run all these various scenarios to help you understand how you'll scale your inventory and storage capacity up or down. So I hope you found this video valuable. Please comment below with questions and let me know if this worked for you. I do offer coaching and consulting services surrounding this topic, so you can always book a free 30-minute initial consultation using the link below in the description. And finally, please also subscribe for more insider stuff like this. Thank you so much.